I see you're all already online. So please share your presentation with us.
Good afternoon. Is it visible?
So this looks very good. We can see your presentation. We can hear perfectly. And please deliver your speech.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And my warmest greetings and regards to all the keynote speakers and the chairpersons. I'm Dr. Shivani Singhal. I'm currently pursuing MD Pathology from PGIMS Rohtak, India. And right now I'm a third year resident. Now today I would like to present my research work that I did in first 2 years of my training. The title is DNA ploidy analysis in acute leukemia by flow cytometry. So starting with the basic, what is ploidy? Ploidy is a genetic term that is used for the number of basic sets of chromosome in a cell. Now, if there is a single set of chromosome, we say it as haploid, which has 23 chromosome. And if there are two sets of chromosome, then it's called as diploid with 46 chromosomes. Now, this happens in normal cell. This picture depicts the change in the DNA content of a cell when it is going through different phases of the cell cycle. The first stage being the G1 phase, which is the growth phase, in which there is duplication of the cellular content, but the nuclear content remains the same. It is diploid. Now, in the S phase, that is the synthetic phase, there is duplication of the DNA material. So you can see here that there is a rise in the DNA content. And in the G2 phase, the nuclear content has duplicated. So it is double to what was present in the G1. And then occurs the mitosis stage. And in the mitosis stage, after the mitosis stage, the DNA content, it splits equally into two cells. So again, your DNA content, it goes back to the same as it was in the G1. Now this C is the DNA histogram, which we see in flow cytometer. Now here you can see that G1, this is, here the DNA index is 1. So that means, that it is diploid. Now S phase depicts DNA index between 1 and G2 has DNA index of 2. That is, it is double to what it was in G1. Now, DNA content can be categorized as either normal or abnormal, abnormal being aneuploid. What happens in the case of aneuploid is that the cell may gain or lose one or more chromosome. Cells with less than a diploid chromosome content are referred to as hypoploid aneuploidy, and cells with more than a diploid but less than the tetraploid complex chromosome are referred to as hyperdiploid aneuploidy. Now, aneuploidy can be detected with the help of traditional metaphase cytogenetics, interphase cytogenetics like FISH or multicolor FISH, spectral karyotyping and comparative genomic hybridization techniques, flow cytometer, and image cytometry. Now, in my study, in my research work, the aim was to study the DNA ploidy in acute leukemia cases by flow cytometry. The objectives being the first, confirmation of typing of leukemia by flow cytometry. Second, to study the DNA ploidy using flow cytometry. Third, to compare the DNA ploidy status with different types of leukemia. And fourth, to correlate DNA ploidy status with other established clinico-hematological parameters of acute leukemia. Now, this study was done for a period of over 1 year, and I had 53 new acute leukemia cases which were diagnosed morphologically using special stains, and then immunophenotyping was done by flow cytometry. Now, the DNA index of all these 43 cases were calculated by flow cytometry, and they were correlated with the other parameters. I included all the confirmed cases of acute leukemia which were confirmed by morphology and flow cytometry, and I took in all the age groups, but I excluded the previously treated cases of acute leukemia. Now, this is how we proceeded. Firstly, the complete hemogram. We did the morphological analysis by examining the Leishman stain peripheral blood smears and bone marrow aspirate smears and cytochemistry using Sudan Black B and PASS. And then we proceeded to do the immunophenotyping by flow cytometer. And then finally, we did the DNA ploidy assessment by flow cytometer. Now, this is the procedure for determining the DNA ploidy by flow cytometer that we used in our research. For the sample that we took were peripheral blood or bone marrow aspirate, whichever was available for the patient. And simultaneously, we processed peripheral blood of the control sample or the reference sample. Now, the sample preparation was done, that is a suspension of, a cell suspension was created with cell concentration of 1 into 10⁶ cells per ml by repetitive density centrifugation techniques. And once the sample was prepared, then we proceeded with the staining steps. So there were 3 stains that we used. The first is solution A, which contained trypsin, and that was used for the enzymatic disaggregation and digestion of cell membranes and cytoskeletons of the cell. Then we used solution B, which had trypsin inhibitor and ribonuclease A. This was present to digest the RNA. Now, the third solution, the main solution, was the propidium iodide, which binds to the DNA. Now, first 2 solutions, A and B, they were necessary to help this propidium iodide to permealize into the cell. And then after some incubation period, both the samples, the test sample and the reference sample, were acquired in flow cytometer, and then the DNA histograms were interpreted. Now, the DNA content measured by flow cytometer is defined as DNA index, which is the ratio of sample DNA peak channel to reference DNA peak channel. So the reference diploid population that we took were the peripheral blood mononuclear cell of newborn. A DNA index of 1 represents a normal diploid DNA content, while deviation in cellular DNA content values other than 1 indicate aneuploidy. In our study, I took a DNA index of 1 plus minus 0.05 as diploid, anything less than 0.9 diploid, and more than 1.05 as hyperploid. So this is one of the graph. This is the test sample, and over here you can see in the lower picture that it is a diploid peak. Now, these were other 2 samples. The figure 1 shows histogram with a hyperploid peak. The green one is the hyperploid peak, and the red shows the population with the diploid DNA content. The DNA index of this case was 0.83. In the figure 2, we can see that the green peak has shifted to the right, to the diploid peak. So this was the hyperdiploid peak, and the DNA index here was 1.3. Now, my observations. I took 53 acute leukemia cases. So out of those, 51% were of acute lymphoblastic leukemia, 45% were acute myeloblastic leukemia, and 4% were MPEL cases. Now, aneuploidy in my study was 32%, and 68% were diploid cases. Now, out of these 32% aneuploid, we can see here that 24% were hyperdiploid and 8% were hypoploid population. Now, I correlated the aneuploidy with the sex distribution, and I found that there was a statistically significant difference in the distribution of male and female in diploid and aneuploid population. And I found that there was female preponderance in case of diploid population, and there was male preponderance in case of aneuploid population. Then comparison was done in the age groups between the two diploid and the aneuploid population, and our age was higher in case of aneuploid group. But again, but this wasn't statistically significant. Then I compared the hematological parameters between the two groups, that is diploid and aneuploid. The parameters that we took were hemoglobin, total leukocyte count, platelet count, blast percentage in peripheral blood, and blast percentage in flow cytometer. And I found that hemoglobin was higher in the diploid group, whereas the total leukocyte count, platelet count, and blast percentage was higher in the aneuploid group. Now, coming specifically to the acute lymphoblastic leukemia population in my study, as I had told already that we had 51% of our cases were of ALL, and then we can see that 45% were of B lineage, and aneuploidy in ALL, I had 30% aneuploid cases in my ALL population, out of which 19% were hyperdiploid and 11% were hypoploid population. When I correlated the incidence of aneuploidy with other studies in my region and other regions, I found that my incidence of 30% was almost equal to the Taleb et al. They also reported 30%, but there were other studies where the incidence was touching up to 50%. This was because they had selectively taken the lineage ALL population and mostly the pediatric population. Then I compared the frequency and hypoploid cases. And as you can see, I found that the percentage of hypoploid population was more in our region. It was 11.2%, whereas other cases, other studies in our region, they show. Then again, I compared various parameters among this diploid, hyperdiploid, and hypoploid ALL population. The parameters being sex, age, hemoglobin, total leukocyte count, platelet, and blast percentage. And this is what I deduced here, that the diploid population had female preponderance, that is 74% cases were female, and 52% cases belonged to adult age group. Majority of patients had hemoglobin less than 10.5, and only 37% of cases had total leukocyte count more than 50,000. Thrombocytopenia was observed in 90% of the diploid population, and 94.7% of cases had high blast count. Now, in hypoploid population, this is important because here I saw that they belong mainly to the female adult group, and all of them had hemoglobin less than 10.5, total leukocyte count was higher than 50,000, and they had thrombocytopenia, and blast count was more than 20%. Hyperdiploid population, on the other hand, showed adult male group, and 80% of these cases had hemoglobin less than 10.5, total leukocyte count was less than 50,000, which is a good prognostic factor. Platelet count was less than 1.5 lakh, and blast count were more than 20%. So in the whole, what I concluded was that hyperdiploidy in my study was associated with some good prognostic factors such as young age and low total leukocyte count. And hyperdiploidy was associated with poor prognostic factors like low hemoglobin, high total leukocyte count, and low platelet count. Now coming on to acute myeloblastic leukemia. The incidence of AML cases was 45% in my study. And as you can see that 67% were diploid, and 33% of cases were aneuploid, where 29% were hyperdiploid and 4% were hypoploid. As I correlated the incidence of aneuploidy in AML with other studies, I found that there was variability in the incidence of aneuploidy in the literature, ranging from 0% to 40%. And this was mainly because different modalities were used in case of AML, because mainly conventional cytogenetic techniques are used to see the aneuploidy, and there was very limited data reported by using flow cytometry in case of AML. So I found that my aneuploidy percentage was 33.3% in case of AML. The drawback and the limitation here being we did not have karyotyping modalities in our center, so I could not correlate them with the karyotyping. Then again, I compared various parameters among diploid, hyperdiploid, and hypoploid population. And I found out that this distribution of hemoglobin among diploid and aneuploid population was significant. Among the aneuploid group, 71.4% hyperdiploid cases had hemoglobin of less than 10.5 gram%, which was statistically significant. However, again, due to time-bound nature of a study, we could not follow up the patients, so its association with prognosis could not be established. And other clinical hematological parameters did not reveal any statistically significant correlation in acute myeloblastic leukemia case. Now, in this study, we also analyzed the aberrant expression of various antigens among diploid and aneuploid population. We observed that there was increased expression of lymphoid markers such as TDT, CD3, CD5, CD79A in aneuploid AML cases as compared to the diploid population. So to summarize, the present study, though provide new insights into relative frequencies of various DNA ploidy groups based on the DNA index values, but there were certain limitations like the small sample size, the lack of correlation with cytogenetic techniques, and a lack of long-term follow-up to comment on the prognostic significance of the ploidy. So we need larger prospective studies for establishing the prognostic significance here. At last, I would like to conclude that flow cytometer is a rapid, cost-effective, sensitive, easy to perform, and is not dependent on the proliferation state of the tumor. It not only aids in diagnosis of acute leukemia, but it also helps us to assess the ploidy status at the time of diagnosis of acute leukemia, thus giving us prognostically useful information before starting of induction therapy and evaluating aneuploid leukemia following therapy. Thus, we recommend each newly diagnosed case should be analyzed by flow cytometer in addition to karyotyping for early identification of patients who will be benefited by conventional induction therapy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shivani, for this comprehensive speech. And are there any questions from the audience? Well, no. So just a brief comment from me. Well, I think flow cytometry is a very valuable tool in the diagnostic workup of leukemia. And of course, it's fast and it's easy. And as a pathologist, of course, I prefer tissue in any way. But of course, in the oncological setting, this is an equivalent tool of diagnostics that can make a proper diagnosis of acute leukemia. So thank you for this illustrative speech.
Thank you so much.